guys. Way to go. Keep it going. Good job, guys. All right, Paul. I see you. Finish on. Coach Cole.
Great job, guys.
Hey there, it's Coach Curl here, and welcome to episode 261 of the Today's Leader podcast. It's with great pleasure this week that I welcome Kristen Zhivago to the show. Now, this was a fairly recent chat where Kristen shares her experiences leading the charge, in my eyes, on being a revenue coach and helping businesses generate more leads and revenue. Now, this is a conversation not to miss, because this conversation takes place in many ways, shapes and forms right around the world, but Kristen genuinely walks the talk. Now, Kristen is the president of Zhivago Partners, a digital marketing management company based in Rhode Island. They are absolutely committed to generate qualified leads for their clients using the full range of appropriate digital techniques and channels. Tapping into the mindset of the customer helps them and their clients make spot-on offers, resulting in win-win outcomes for both the client and the customer. Now, some of the key points that we dive into during the show: understanding the state of mind of the customer when they want to buy. And there is a clear difference when a customer wants to buy. The consumer is no longer the prisoner and has many avenues available for them, once again, when they commit to buy. What does putting on your buyer's hat really mean? And finally, what is the jerk test that Kristen talks about? All of these and more will be found out during our discussion today on the podcast. So please welcome to the Today's Leader podcast, Kristen Zhivago.
The podcast is brought to you by Think and Grow Business, the home of the Think and Grow Business Mastermind. If you're serious about growing your business, get serious and join a mastermind group today. Find out more at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au.
It's my absolute pleasure to introduce to the Today's Leader podcast, I have Kristen Zhivago. How are you, Kristen?
Good.
Good afternoon to you over there in the East Coast of the United States. So
Yes, that's correct.
Beautiful morning here in Queensland, Australia. Now, you are a revenue coach, and I'm really intrigued by that title, revenue coach. Tell me about what a revenue coach does.
Well, I invented the term, so I made a little industry of my own. I really didn't want to be a sales coach or a marketing coach, although I've done both. Because CEOs and business owners don't really care about sales and marketing per se. What they want is revenue, and they know that sales and marketing brings that in. So I thought, well, why not talk about that in those terms? And that was really my elevator pitch. So they would say, well, what's a revenue coach? And I'd say, well, I help CEOs and entrepreneurs make more money by understanding what their customers want to buy and how they want to buy it, so they can make it easy for them to buy. So that's what I've been doing. Did a lot of marketing and sales turnarounds until I started my own company here.
So Zhivago Partners is a digital marketing management company. Have I got that right?
Yeah.
And you've also written a book in relation to this whole concept, so Roadmap to Revenue. So it's something you've certainly dived into.
Yeah, Roadmap to Revenue, quote, or colon, how to sell the way your customers want to buy, is basically looking at selling from the customer's buying process. Yeah. Which is how they look at it. Yeah. And too many sellers just sort of ignore that. So I was one of the first people to identify that as a reality, and a lot of other people have jumped on board now talking about the buyer's journey and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about, so I do a lot of work with small businesses and medium-sized businesses, and going through and doing some research in relation prior to this podcast. You talk a lot about the assumptions that businesses make in relation to the customer. And in fact, many of your interviews highlights a huge discrepancy in relation to what the customer is actually looking for to what the business thinks that they're looking for. How do you navigate that with organizations?
Well, what I learned as a revenue coach is I learned it the hard way, which was that I would go in and I'd interview the client and they would tell me all the things that they were doing and what they thought was important to the customer. And then I'd go out and I interview the customers and their list was always completely different than the company's list. So I knew that I would have to sort of dump the truth on their heads like they do at the end of a football game, our kind of football anyway, where they dump Gatorade on your head, afterwards on the coach's head. And I wanted to catch them at that moment. So I ended up with two kinds of reports, a word for word transcription conversation report that was anonymized. So they couldn't attribute anything to anyone and it protected people so they could speak freely. But every single word, the way they described their issues and what the company was doing with them, what they were getting from the company, it was all there. And, some of these reports were 150 pages and you would think that a busy executive wouldn't have time to read them, but they read every word and they almost memorized it. So they'd be in the meeting and say, well, yeah, but that's not what this guy said. This guy said so-and-so. So suddenly you would now be in this magic moment where you're in a conference room with all these people and they are suddenly seeing the truth. The window has been opened. And they're seeing the truth. And now you can start making better decisions. And so we would have 2-day meetings where you would say, okay, if this is the truth, then what do we have to do? And where do we go from here?
What compelled you to dive into this? Have you always been in this space, Kristen?
Actually, I graduated from college with a music degree. I was going to be a music teacher. There weren't any jobs when I got out of school for that. And so at the time, I'd already been selling. I was the first woman to sell machine shop tools in the United States. They basically gave me a catalog and, I was wearing a mini skirt. So I got into the machine shops back in the day, very young. And I learned then that you had to understand what you were selling in order to, because nobody trained me. They just said, here's a catalog. Go sell. So I learned some hard lessons. And that experience proved to me that I loved the idea of learning as much as I could about technology and selling. And that set the course of my life, that first job. So from there, I had a lot of sales and marketing jobs. And then I opened up a Silicon Valley ad agency back in the day. Back before the internet. My husband and I ran that for about 12 years. And then the Macintosh came out and I said to my husband, you know what, why don't you retire? He's an inventor. Go do your thing, whatever you want to do. And I'm going to try to figure out how to help people market and sell in-house and just be a consultant to them. And that's how I ended up being a revenue coach. And then I did a lot of marketing and sales turnarounds for companies of all sizes, including Dow Jones and IBM.
Wow. It's quite a different journey to what we tend to see a music teacher to marketing. I think that's quite
the truth. Yeah.
I think that's quite cool. So leads are also, and so when we're talking about businesses and most of them are never happy with the revenue that they're getting or that they're struggling to get leads. So is that all about understanding the customer to the degree that they're talking in the customer's language, or is there more to it than that?
Well, actually, what we try to do is generate leads for our clients. I mean, that's our bottom line deliverable. How we get there is always different for every single client because their customers buy differently. They have different competition. They have different capabilities within the company themselves. And so you can't just cookie cutter it. You can't just say, oh, well, use this channel. I mean, people come to us all the time and say, I used social, it didn't work, or I used SEO, it didn't work. You have to actually do all of it, figure out which is working the best, and then work it and work it. And what we found recently, I've been talking about the customer's mindset and something I call mindset-driven marketing. You can talk about where the customers are, which is the channels. You can talk about who they are, which is the personas.
Yeah.
But what really matters is the mindset that they have when they set out to buy.
Yeah.
And the mindset is a state of mind that consists of their desires, their concerns, and their questions.
Okay.
And if you don't address all of those things in your marketing, they're just going to click away.
Yeah.
We brought one client to hockey stick status, as in like that going up. With an advertising program, we added 2 words that appealed to the mindset of her customers. And this was in the travel business, and it was when COVID hit, and you would think all the things were against her, but she took off, and it was, I can't tell you which words they were because then I'd be giving away the secret. But those 2 words made everything change. So it's part knowing what they want, understanding it, not guessing, and then doing some experimentation.
It's interesting the journey that the customers have taken. I mean, I'm in my mid 50s, and when I started out in my career, I was in retail, and I started working for a large discount department store, and we're in a lower economic, socio-economic region, and we used to call it KTEL country, and KTEL was one of those as seen on TV brands over here in Australia. And what we would know for sure is that the day after an ad would air on the television, we would just be run off our feet with people chasing that particular product. It was that whole that appeal that people needed to have it. And I guess in my journey, I've seen that extent of consumer behavior, and I now see that they're a little bit more picky, they're a little bit more cynical, but in some respects, they're just as ready to buy sometimes from a spontaneity point of view online. So what do you now see with the customer, and why is it so important for organizations to actually understand that changing consumer brief?
Well, the big thing that's changed is Google, number one.
Yeah.
The fact that you can search for anything, anytime online and get the answer within nanoseconds. That's massive.
Yeah.
The second thing that's changed is that customers are able to talk to each other all the time, anywhere. So, the lists, we have a something called Nextdoor in our neighborhood, and you can ask people, do you know of a good electrician or something like that? So there are these portals that have been built up, like Angie's List, that for service companies. Yep. And more of those are coming up because it's getting harder and harder to find a reliable source of a service business. The other thing that's happened is consumers can talk directly to each other with product reviews. And of course, Amazon's been on the vanguard of this since the very beginning when they started in 94 or whenever it was. And the fact that you can ask other customers your question, that you can see their photos and read their reviews. And so that has completely unleashed the consumer. They're no longer the prisoner, so to speak. They're no longer limited by the information that companies turn out.
Yeah.
And the actual experience of using the product or the service is out there for everyone to see. I have this famous quote that people requote all the time, which is that branding is the promise that you make, and your brand is the promise that you keep. And you keep it with your products, your people, your processes, your policies, your passion. But the thing is, you can't hide anymore. You can't make promises that you don't keep anymore because they're going to out you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that has changed. So now marketers have to understand and accept the fact that the consumer is completely in control. And everybody says this, but they don't respect it. They don't actually ask the customers, what they don't ever interview them or talk to them. And they run surveys that are all based on their assumptions. And so, if it's a multiple choice thing, your choice might not even be there.
Yeah.
So it's this whole idea that marketers are by nature pretty shy, and they tend to want to stay in the background and not really talk to people. And it's a big, big, big mistake. Marketers should be the absolute expert on exactly what the customer's thinking.
Yeah. One of the programs I work with over here is enables the person wanting to start a business. It's a 9-week program, and over that 9 weeks, they've got to come back every single week with what customers they've talked to, what assumptions that they had are being challenged, the commerciality of the product. And it's really quite a daunting thing for people to go out and actually talk to a real life customer to say, will this stack up? Because it's easy to get confirmation from friends and family, but vastly different to get it from the customer. And I suppose part of our conversation today, I'm sort of thinking that in some respects, I understand exactly what you're saying when the consumer's got the power, but do we also run the risk of giving them too much information and too much potential power?
Sorry, that genie's out of the bottle. That's been gone. That's been out of the bottle for, 5-10 years now.
Yeah.
And marketers are still in a state of denial. They still think they own all the keys to the kingdom. And no, it's just not true. I mean, you can just literally ask anyone, find the person, ask them questions. You can go to your LinkedIn groups and things like that.
Yeah.
So no, you can't. In fact, what you need to do is almost overwhelm them with information, so you become the one that makes it easy for them to buy.
Yeah.
We just went through a process where we're getting a backup generator for our house, and the guy who immediately came back with an estimate, answered my questions, actually came out here within 15 minutes to give me to look around and give me a quote kind of thing. That guy got my business. He made it easy for me to buy from him. The other people said, oh, you can't get generators because of COVID, it'll be March or something. And in New England, that's a little too late. If you need to do it by the winter, So no, it's just, there's so much delusion going on right now.
Yeah.
The customer is miles away from us. And we're still sitting there crying in our beer, saying, well, gee, they don't listen to me anymore. Yeah. But if you really give them useful information, they will trust you and they will come back to you, and you will, in fact, make more sales. So
I'm trying to really think about this, because you're challenging some of my concepts as we walk through this, Kristen, and I absolutely love that. And so where you are now as a revenue coach, who's inspired you in that journey to really dive into this?
Well, Tony, the CEO of Zappos, died recently. I was so sad because his book was really one of the better ones about, what happens when you give customers more than they ask for and you absolutely build your whole organization around delight.
Yeah.
And the other person who inspired me was Jeff Bezos. When he first came out, because I had been in tech for a couple of decades before Amazon came out. And I thought to myself, this is the first tech company I've seen that's building their whole offering around the infrastructure. Not the product, not the service, but the infrastructure. They were the total definition of making it easy to buy. And they're still doing it. They're still number one. Nobody even comes close to the amount of convenience on a single page, answer your questions and find other things other people have bought and sponsored stuff and the review, everything.
Yeah.
So those were the people that made me think that there's more to this, and there have been other people who talked about customers and, the buying journey and all of that. This is all common sense. This is all about empathy. This is all about treating your neighbor as you'd like to be treated. And here's the interesting thing about all this.
Yeah.
The minute we put on our buyer hat, we are that person. We are that picky buyer who's looking for all the information and getting frustrated when we don't find it and dismissing the people that don't give us the information and all of that. We are just those people. The minute we put on our seller hat, we are kind of reluctant and we don't want to talk to them. And why do we have to do what they want us to do? We're sort of doing a little tantrum dance, you know. It's just human nature. It's the funniest thing.
And even when you were talking about the generator and the person that got out there the quickest and answered the questions and made it easy, there's almost a chain of thought in some business coaches, for example, that would tell you, don't do that. Don't be the first. Don't don't respond too quickly, because otherwise it's telling the customer you're not busy enough and you're not, you know, so.
Again, that genie's out of the bottle. I mean, let's think about it this way. People work so they can buy things.
Absolutely.
That's what they do. They make money and they buy things with it. And this generation, our generation, I mean, even baby boomers all the way up to the newest people are, even the youngsters now, they're just on their iPads, or they're not their iPads anymore, but, you know, they're on their phones.
Yeah.
And they're just, they've become buyers. They consume things. And so they've become pretty savvy about when somebody's not telling them the whole truth or starting to play games. That's a game.
Yeah.
Those business consultants are saying, here's how you're going to treat your customers who are paying your mortgage and sending your kids to college, and you're going to play games with them?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and as you sit there struggling to put food on the table because someone's already beaten you to the punch. So,
exactly. I can't tell you how many times. I mean, I live in a very small state, Rhode Island, and they have there are more buyers than there are sellers. Yeah. So there's for the landscaping guys are all very busy, and you know, everybody's kind of got work, so they get a little bit lazy. And I used to live in California, and there it was much more business-like. Those guys showed up and they did. It's different here. If the guy doesn't want to do it, he wants to go fishing, he just doesn't show up. So Johnny on the spot gets the business over and over again.
So one simple tip would be for every business owner out there, every business leader out there, to put on your buyer's cap instead of the seller's cap, to change that perspective.
That is the essence, right, in a nutshell. Yeah. That's the whole thing.
So I'm guessing also, Kristin, that you can't necessarily work with everyone. There are going to be some business owners or leaders or managers that just don't get what it is that you're talking about.
Well, I have one rule, and all the people that work for me now, we all enjoy this rule. I don't work with jerks. No, that's my rule. That is my rule. And I have a jerk test, which I can't talk about because then you'll know what it is. But it works every time. And it tells me right away if the person's a jerk or not. Yeah. And if they're a jerk, we don't take them on. And if they turn into a jerk at some point during the process, I drop them. Yeah. It's that simple, because I know, number one, I've created a safe place for nice people to work here. Yeah. And we all love it. There's no politics, but everybody's helping each other all day long. It's wonderful. It's the dreamiest job I've ever had, working with this team, and they're all good people. And our clients are all good people. Yeah. And then I know they treat their customers well.
Yeah. The old, if we look after our team, they will look after the customer. And it's such
and it starts
simple
at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. It's such a simple philosophy, and yet so many businesses consistently fail in that particular area. I love the jerk test. I need to dive into that and create my own, maybe.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you later, but you passed the test. I already did the jerk test, and you passed it. So I'll tell you later how you did that.
All right. I'm happy with that. So Kristin, all of our business journeys, our leadership journeys, we've got peaks, we've got troughs. How do you deal with those inevitable failures that we come across, or when we're dipping into a trough or trying to come out of a deep hole? How do you deal with that?
You know, I've been doing this a long time. I'm getting old. And I haven't lost any of my energy, thank God. But I've definitely seen just about any kind of situation you can name, because I've worked with hundreds of companies and interviewed thousands of customers. And the truth is everything can be worked out. Now, again, if you're working with jerks, if you have a jerk, the definition of a jerk is that they make things more difficult for other people.
Okay.
That's what jerks do. I don't care how they got there. I don't care if their mother mistreated them when they were 5 years old or whatever. It doesn't matter. That's what they do. And so if you're working for someone who's making life harder on you, you need to get out.
Yeah.
So number one, because those are unsolvable problems. No matter what you do, they're going to make life harder on you. The nice people make life easier. That's what we do. We try to help people.
Yeah.
So there's that. And realizing that this too shall pass, which everybody always talks about. I have strong faith. I believe that there's a bigger picture and that we're all here for a purpose. And I try to live out my purpose every single day. And that keeps me going. And I have a great marriage. My husband and I have been best friends for more than 40 years now. And, that helps.
Yeah.
I also just spend time, usually in the mornings, just reconnecting with that sort of concept of something greater than yourself and really tuning into the types of things that you're supposed to be doing with your life. And that really grounds me too. So I make good decisions all day. And when bad stuff happens, I just tell my team, okay, we've gone through these other things. We're going to get through this. So there's a confidence in the fact that you will work it out. You just solve problems all day. My husband turned me on to this thing that he thought of, which was find it, face it, fix it.
Okay, find it, face it,
and the thing with that, there's another aspect to it, which is if you fix it, it doesn't get fixed, then you F it. That's the other F word. You just say, never mind. All right. So there's always a solution.
You've got so many theories. That's so cool. I can just see a personality profiling instrument being used around the jerk scenario. A nice to jerks, like a continuum. So
yes,
now we've got
exactly.
the 4 F's. So when you're facing a problem, deal with it with the 4 F's. So actually, there's more than 4 because it's fix it. Yeah.
Find it, face it, fix it. Yeah, and fix it and fix it and fix it. You're right.
Yeah. So it might be the 4 F's twice. I'm not quite sure. So. So you mentioned a couple of books earlier. What books had the biggest impact on yourself?
I think, some of them I've read and then reread. Good to Great is a good book. That's a really good book for just understanding how businesses really work. A lot of the books that have actually had more of an effect on me have been sort of the novels of the people who have overcome a lot of obstacles.
Okay.
I'm right now, my husband got me started on the Wilbur Smith books because he's on his 3rd successful fight against fatal cancer. And he's coming out of it again. And one of the things he decided the first time it came is that he was going to fight. I mean, he's an ex-Marine.
Yeah.
And he started reading adventure books to kind of keep himself in that fighting mood all the way through. So that was kind of interesting. And now I'm starting to read them, and they're very inspiring. They're very resourceful people. You have to be very resourceful when you own a business. You really have to be brave and courageous and honest and forthright. And by the way, just being that kind of person is going to bring you more business because people like doing business with someone like that. Yeah,
absolutely. So for you, what's the vision moving forward?
Well, I love what I do. I've told people for years I'm going to die at my keyboard. I just, I love what I do. I love having a team. I love helping people. Years and years and years ago, I realized my job in life was to help people realize their dreams. And this job helps me do the best job of that with business owners and the people who work on the team. So it's
excellent,
very rewarding work.
Excellent. So is there anything that I haven't asked you, Kristin, that I should have?
That's a great question. I've never heard anybody do that. I do that at the end of my customer interviews.
Yeah.
I always ask people, is there something I should have asked that I didn't? So you get a gold star for being somebody who asked that question.
So I'm not a jerk and I get a gold star.
And you get a gold star. Yeah,
all
you're doing pretty well. No, I think you covered it all. I think one thing that needs to be brought up right this minute is this whole COVID thing and how scary the world has gotten. In the midst of all of this, there's always somebody who needs what you offer.
Yeah.
And your job is to explain it, get out in front of them and explain it properly and be there when they need you and do your best job. And that's really where the best satisfaction comes from.
Okay. So still get out there in front of it. So I love I love doing this podcast, Kristen, because I get to meet so many leaders from around the world. And I was speaking with Laura Goodrich recently, who wrote Seeing Red Cars, and she's an amazing leader. And she uses the terminology, you've got to get to the front of the line. You've got to get to the front of the line. And
always.
Sometimes it's just some of those really simple things that resonate with people that they just say, I haven't been at the front of the line, or I haven't been in front of people, or I haven't been getting at it. And it really does and can shift some behaviors. So, Kristen, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. I really thank you for the investment of your time. I'm sure my listeners will get some great insight around sales and marketing. It's such a dirty word for people, sales and marketing. And the way that you approach it, looking at the customer first, is just such a simple tip. And, put on your buyer's hat. Put on your buyer's hat. So, because once again, when you spoke about that, when I'm looking to buy something, I want to make it as simple as I possibly can. And just the other day, I was looking to upgrade my phone. I stood in the phone department of one of our major retailers here for probably 15 to 20 minutes. That's not making it easy for me. So I ended up walking out and saying, well, my old phone's okay anyway. I'll just make do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Perfect example.
Kristen, once again, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Join the group of people impacted by seriously simple stuff to get you unstuck. The first book by Tony Coach Curl. Available at Amazon, Tony's Simple Stuff provides the tool for people to master your life and aspirations. 20% of every book sold supports Carter's cause.
I passed the jerk test. That was one of the funniest things I've ever encountered on the Today's Leader podcast, but I'm sworn to secrecy, so I can't even tell you what it is. But let's have a look at the broader concept today of customer mindset. Understanding purchasing behavior is really important. So when we look at, say, a considered purchase as an example, now this is I've chosen a considered purchase for a reason, because there's usually a higher level of research and consideration as part of that process. But consider this, once you've done your research and once you've considered and you want to buy, what is the difference in your mindset? You've moved from one of research to one of intent to purchase, haven't you? And your mindset actually shifts. And if you're 100% honest, it's noticeably different, because all of a sudden there's urgency around the process. We want to get the item, the service, whatever it may be. And we want to be able to give our money or our credit cards as simply and as easily as possible. It's noticeably different from that research and the consideration piece. So my question to you is, how are you setting your messages and your information out to the customer to both help them research and consider, but also to create that emotional connection when they're ready to buy? Now, as per always in the show notes, I will have a link out there to Kristen's LinkedIn profile, and also to the Zhivago Partners website will be available once again in the show notes. Now, in today's disruptive world, good leadership skills will always stand you in great stead. Now, if you're looking to build better leadership skills, check out the Today's Leader website at Now, our website showcases not only the podcast and the magazine, but we're also pleased to now say that our masterminds are available directly from the Today's Leader website. Now, these masterminds are supported by our network sites, of course. Today's Leader is a collective mindset for the leaders and entrepreneurs of today, forging the path for success for tomorrow. The mindset to make a difference, the ability to create the impact. Think and Grow Business hosts our Today's Leader Masterminds. Think and Grow Business, where we focus on personal, professional and business growth. Book your free 30-minute discovery call at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au. Don't forget the Coach Curl Academy has over 75 programs to help you build a better you. Join for just $1 for the first month. The Academy equips you and enhances mindset, leadership and business. Check it out now at thecoachcurlacademy.com. Don't forget, you are standing stronger, braver and wiser. And whatever you do, don't ever forget the golden rule. Just don't be an arsehole. I'll see you all again next week.